Chief of Chatelaine magazine, Karine Ewart, is here as we go what's inside the pages of this magazine. I enjoy these articles so much.
I'm so glad.
Today we're going to talk about one called Like You Mean It. So
Like
this
You
is
Mean It.
Leah McLaren, and the whole premise is what? You tell us.
So the premise of the story is basically how we save our authentic selves for those of our families at home. So we actually treat our family members maybe not as well as we would treat perfect strangers. So the way that we present ourselves to perfect strangers, we're really lovely, we're always polite, kind, on our best behavior.
Right.
But at home, we kind of let it go a little.
Yeah, we
or
get
a lot.
We get a little nasty at home, right?
That
Because
happens.
we're being our true selves. And our true selves are like, I had a bad day at work, now I'm cranky, and you're going to get it.
Right, because technically speaking, our loved ones know all of our true selves, right? They know the good parts and they know the bad parts. So they can make adjustments based on our moods. Whereas perfect strangers, if you were your true unhappy self, often they wouldn't know that you're actually a good person as well. So that's sort of the premise behind the thing. But I do think it's interesting to think about this because I will admit, I probably behave at home in a way that I wouldn't necessarily behave at work or in public.
None of us would.
Right?
No.
I know.
mean, if you rolled a camera at my house, you'd be like, okay, take away her kids and give her divorce papers. Because who at home is trying to be perfect all the time? And that's the whole point of having these close relationships. You know, they're people you trust, so you trust them enough to actually, you have to love me still, even if I'm like this.
True, so it's that
There's
whole
that thing
idea of
happening.
you have to love all of me.
Right.
But I think this article also touches on the fact that sometimes we could probably do a little bit better. We could probably not reveal our nasty selves quite as often as we do. And it's interesting because after you read the article, you start to notice how often you do that at home.
Absolutely. So when I read it, I thought, okay, her advice, it's Leah McLaren, she's the author of the article. Her advice is actually to fake it more at home.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us in the real world, we're faking it. We're putting on our best behavior. It's like being on a first date all the time. You're trying to be nice and polite and sort of, presenting this self that maybe isn't, 100% of who you are. She's saying do a little bit more of that at home. And I read it and I thought, she's right.
She is right.
She
we should
is
be
right.
trying a little bit harder in that way.
It doesn't mean that you can't ever let it go because you have to have that safe space where you can be 100% of who you are, but remembering that your partner in life is also somebody who likes you being funny and charming and sweet and humorous and all of these things is a good thing to keep in mind.
It's a good thing to keep in mind.
That's why you guys first got together. So don't put all of that aside for strangers. Save some of it for the people at home.
Exactly, including your kids too.
And your kids too. You can't just wreak havoc on them all the time. You have to be. You kind of have to be that sweet person. I would say my kids are actually the only people in the world that I'm pretty nice to most of the time.
Yeah, I think there's a different relationship there ultimately, and I think that is true. But recognizing that if you just fake it a little bit more, maybe ignore some of those tiny little annoying things ultimately that happen at home with your partner in particular, things can get better.
So she learned this, she says, the hard way, because her first marriage ended because she was too much of the real Leah at home.
Right.
And then the second time around, she added a little bit more sweetness to the home life.
Yeah.
And she feels that that's the way she's dealing with her marriage. And she learned that lesson from dealing with a baby.
That's right.
Babies don't care if you had a hard day at work.
Or exhausted.
Love me, cuddle me, give me food right now. And so she learned that, okay, well, I actually have to be put on this persona to raise my child properly in a loving, caring, nurturing environment.
Right.
And she's extended that. So I think it's cool. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about the best marriage advice you ever got.
I got some good advice.
So did I.
Yeah,
and I got some bad advice too.
Interesting. We'll have to share that too.
Yeah. Well, you can read more about this and a lot of other really good articles in the June issue of Chatelaine magazine. You're all going to take one home in our audience. So great articles in there. Enjoy that. And let's get a break. We've got more coming up. Stay with us.